No, you didn't. I would have studied.
To our colleagues in Edgeland, welcome to today's session of Engineering Innovation. We are honored to have with us today Mr. John Spence. John is a Gator. Welcome back home, John. And John happens to be a personal friend of mine, and I share with you what we're about to experience because I think it's life-changing for the better.
One would hope so.
And without further ado, I'd like to just start with the session. So, John, welcome back home. And
I live here, but
he does.
welcome home to campus.
John's back on campus. Every semester, John comes and talks to our students about the important things. So, why don't we first start with the important things? Innovation. Mm-hmm. And what does innovation mean to you in your professional life?
Oh, wow. He always, by the way, he never tells me what he's going to ask me. So from a business standpoint, from a lot of different standpoints, first of all, innovation to me means that you've got to be dedicated to lifelong learning and constantly getting better and approaching your job, not as a job, but as a craft, and constantly getting better, sharper, smarter, faster, increasing your network, learning as much as you can to add as much value as you possibly can to the marketplace. Innovation from a different standpoint is pretty much, I think we all agree now, the driver of the American economy for the foreseeable future. We have to be an innovative country that full of entrepreneurs, creating new technology, increasing technology, things like that. It's the only competitive advantage we really have left to us as a country. And then innovation, just on a fun part, is neat people creating things that are really cool, that are of high value. So, and I'll add something to that. Have any of you read a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins? Okay, I'll save you the reading. It's about 400 pages. He looked at 1,483 companies, and he got it down to the top 11. These 11 were 400 to 700% better than their nearest competitor for a minimum of 15 years. So think about owning a business that you're 700% better than your nearest competitor for a decade and a half. Pretty impressive. And when he looked at them, he said there was three areas, three circles that overlapped that they all created their strategy around. First circle is world class. What are you truly great at? And this works exactly the same for you as an individual. So it's a company or an individual. So circle number one is world class. What are you truly great at? What does your business do better than anybody else? And by the way, it's whatever world you compete in. Could be Gainesville, Florida, could be the United States, could be the entire world. For pretty much everybody in this room, it's the entire world. Especially if you're selling brains and intelligence and ideas, that's a global competition. So that's circle number one. Circle number two is passion. What do you love to do? What are you excited about? What are your employees excited about? What are they passionate about? And then circle number three is economic value, what he calls economic engine. And the reason I bring up that point, because I think it goes right to innovation, is I meet a lot of entrepreneurs that have the first two circles. They're really, really good at something they're deeply passionate about. We just talked about this in the car on the way over. But it's missing that third circle of value in the marketplace, which means it's a hobby. Because if you're great at it, you love it, but no one will pay for it, you're not building a business or a career around it. And I spent a couple hours with a young entrepreneur a month ago or so, deeply passionate about what she was doing, very, very talented. No one was interested at all in buying it. And I was trying to help her understand that without that third circle, that economic value, you don't have a business. It might be something fun to work on, but you're not going to grow a business or hire people. And then I'll add on to this. This is from Jim Collins, and when he looked at these companies, but another friend of mine, Tim Sanders, wrote a book called Love is the Killer App. And he talks about the three things it takes to build a world-class career. And I love, love, love this. And it's K, N, and L. The K stands for knowledge. You've got to be bright, sharp, smart, and talented at something that's highly valuable in the marketplace. You've got to have skills, creativity, ideas, information, innovation that people highly value. They want to pay money for. That's the K. The N stands for network. A lot of the right people need to know that about you. And by right people, the word I use is hubs. People that by the nature of who they are, that if they're really impressed with what you do, they don't tell one or two or three or 10 people. They tell 100, 1,000, or 100,000. I'll give you a quick example. My last book came out in 2009, Awesomely Simple, pretty good book, and not that, it was number 1,100 on the bestsellers list. Not so impressive. Then Guy Kawasaki, former marketing director of Apple, who I've known for years, tweeted it. Just said, pretty good book, bought it, read it, enjoyed it. He has 770,000 Twitter followers. I went from number 11 on the number 1100 on the best sellers list to number 11 in 45 minutes and got back ordered at Amazon.com for 3 months from one tweet. That's a hub. That's somebody, as long as you have the third thing, the L, which stands for love. If you're a loving, kind person of integrity and honesty, you've got a great reputation. A lot of the right people know that about you, and they also know you're really, really good at something that's highly valuable. You have any job at any company, at any salary, anywhere in the world. So the 3 questions are, what did I learn today? Who did I meet today? Did I live my values today? If you've got a stellar reputation, a lot of the right people know that about you, and they know you're really, really good at something that's highly valuable, you write your own ticket, which means you got to be incredibly dedicated to getting better, sharper, smarter, faster every day at something that's valuable, constantly increasing your network, and always guarding your reputation, always working with the highest integrity, the highest honesty, being someone that people like to be around, that people trust, that people respect, not only for their knowledge, but also for their reputation and their integrity.
John, you have a story that you've shared about you received a call, you were doing something socially, you received a call, John, I need you to help me on something.
Oh, okay, yeah, that story, yeah, the corporate espionage story.
Corporate espionage.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, my wife and I are very, very involved in the Association for Retarded Citizens in town, the ARC. We're big patrons there. And every year we host a barbecue for the guys from our fraternity, Pi Kappa Phi, which I joined when I was 31. I was a model initiate. But we host a big party over there, about 400 people. A couple years ago, I was there flipping burgers, hanging out with the consumers and everything. My phone rings, and it's one of my clients, Kevin. Kevin goes, John, I need your help immediately. We got a corporate espionage problem. 2 of our vice presidents are stealing records. They've been stealing data. They're trying to steal a bunch of customers and start a business to compete directly with us. What do I do? I go, Kevin, I'm away from the office right now. Let me get back there. It's about noon. I'll be back by 1. I'll get you a memo by end of business today and tell you exactly what to do. He goes, thanks. I knew I could do. I hang up the phone. I'm like, oh, shit. I don't know anything about espionage. I don't even know how to spell espionage. You know, I'm like, that's good. So I get back to my office, and I send out an email to my network. And my network now is probably 800 or 900 CEOs and senior executives at major companies around the world after 20 years of doing this. At the time, it was about 700. Sent out the email. I turn around. I'm writing on a yellow pad in my office, trying to think of some stuff. The phone rings. It's the COO of Qualcomm. He goes, oh, John, this sort of stuff happens with intellectual property all the time. I'll put you in touch with our corporate attorney. He'll tell you exactly what to do. While I'm talking to him, I look at my computer, head of HR at Merrill Lynch, head of HR at IBM, head of attorney at Southwest. All these people are sending me all their best ideas. I took all of it, combined it, created a memo with it, told my client this didn't come from me. It came from input from C-level people at Fortune 100 companies, or 400, 500 companies around the country. Took it back, put it, long story made bearable. They ended up hiring one of the top corporate espionage attorneys in the country. And after he saw the memo, he told my client, that's the single finest memo I've seen in more than 30 years doing this. May I please have a copy of it? Now here's the point. I still don't know anything about espionage. But I got the memo. But at the time, I've owned or been the CEO of 10 companies. At the time, I owned a pretty large advertising firm. And I had an intern, a guy that worked for us, we called Sneaky because he was so quiet. You never knew he was in the office. Like, hey, where's Rex? And he'd be like, Sneaky, why don't you make a noise or something? So I'm driving with him to lunch one day, and he goes, how did you get successful knowing all these companies and stuff? I said, Sneaky, if you had a really serious business problem that you couldn't answer, how many people could you call right now and ask them for help, and they'd give it to you immediately, and you'd want the help, you'd trust them? He went, 1. No, that guy's not that smart. And I said, 400, 700? I said, I don't have to know. I just need to know the people that know. I'm going to jump off here and tell the fun. Have any of you seen my TED Talk from TED UF? Okay, yeah, a couple have. So for the rest of you, quickly, I started college at the University of Miami in Miami, Florida, because that's where I grew up, and quickly failed out with a 1.6 GPA. Yeah, I picked the college because it was near my girlfriend and my boat, not exactly the right terms for picking college. Yeah. I found out how to kick you out of college. I remember going my second year, my third semester, and I said, there must be some problem. I didn't get a registration date. And they said, no problem, we didn't send you one. Yeah, and oh no, as I said, it gets much better because my father's one of the top alumni ever to graduate from the University of Miami. He's what we would call a bull gator. He's Order of the Iron Arrow. Very, very prestigious. Number 2, the year I got kicked out, he was on the board of directors. Oh, no. part of the law school is named after my dad. The Fred Levin School of Law, that's my dad's law partner. So I got kicked out of a college where there was a building named after my family. Yeah, it's not good. And I never forget, I came up here and applied at the University of Florida, and it was back when Tigert Hall was the registration building. And I remember turning in my transcripts, and the woman looked at me and went, "We don't take people like you." I was like, "Ah!" And I remember walking out of Tigert Hall, sitting on 13th Street on the curb and crying and thinking, "Oh, man, I've just thrown my entire life away." I mean, I had dreams of being a CEO and traveling all over the world and all this stuff. And, at this point, I'm pretty much going to spend the rest of my life going, "Would you like fries with that today?" And by the way, I said that once, and a guy in the audience got really pissed off. He goes, "I own 28 McDonald's, and I don't think that's funny." I go, "Yeah, but you never ask people if they want fries with it. You own them all." Okay, I'll go with that. So I ended up going to Santa Fe, did well, got into school here. And I met a professor at Santa Fe, still one of my closest friends in the world, Roger Strickland. If any of you went to Santa Fe, you might know him. And he pulled me aside and said, "It's only 3 things it takes to be successful in college. Just 3 things." He said, "Number 1, read the books. At least in college, almost all of the answers are in the books, 90% of the." I went, "I can read the books." That's, and up to that point, I wasn't. I was just showing up thinking I could wing it like I did on that and didn't do so good. Number 2, he said, ask for help. Ask everybody in sight for help. Ask the TAs, ask the other students, ask everybody you can. And, a lot of people think it's weak to ask for help. It's probably the second most important thing I've ever learned in my life. The smartest people I know ask for help more than anybody else. They build a huge network of bright, sharp, smart, talented people around them and go to them often and ask for help. So ask for help. And then the third one is, you said, start study groups. And so I did. I'd stand up, and all my classes were like this, even bigger. And I'd stand up, I'm going to have a study group at my house Tuesday and Thursday nights. We'll study from 7 to 10, go out and get a beer afterwards. Anyone that wants to be in the study group is welcome, as long as you have a 3.6 GPA or higher. Started out with about 20 of us, then 15, then 12. It got down to 6 of us. 6 of us went to class together. They had the same major. We studied together. College was easy. You read chapters 1 through 5. You read 6 through 10. You read 11 through 15. You go see the professor. I'll go talk to the TA. We taught each other. It wasn't anywhere near as hard as your school, as I was in the J school, the journalism school, or marketing, advertising, journal. But we graduated numbers 1 through 6 from the journalism school, and I graduated number 3 in the entire country in my major. And here's what I learned. You become what you focus on and like the people you spend time with. When I was at the University of Miami, I focused on everything that had nothing to do with school, and I had a 1.6. All my friends had a 0.9, a 1.2, a 1. I had the highest GPA of all my friends. Yeah, I was the academic stud of my group at a 1.6. When I got up here, if I got a B on a test, like if I got a D on a test there, they're like, big deals. All of us got Ds, because misery loves what? Yeah. And when somebody's failing, they want you to fail too. And say, it wasn't my fault. It was the professor. The test was unfair, which it was, and there was a wrong answer on the test. And on and on and on and on. Because I want to blame everybody. But when I got up here and I changed who I hung out with and what I focused on, if I got a B on a test, they're like, that's not acceptable. We don't get Bs. What do we need to do to help you? Fast forward, there's a great, great book called Think and Grow Rich. It's one of the most famous self-help books of all times by Napoleon Hill. And he said one of the master keys to success is mastermind groups. Finding a group of people who will help you, who are smart, bright, talented, high integrity, honest, and spending time with them and asking for help and helping each other. I had one when I was in college called my study group. The minute I started work, I started one at the town I was working in with some of the people I knew. When I moved to Gainesville, I started one for CEOs under the age of 35, because I was 31. Then I had another one, and I fast forward all the way to today. I have one that about every 45 days, some of the smartest people in Gainesville, so top CEOs, we got one sort of weird guy. But the rest of the group is really good. But no, they come to my house about once every 45 days, and we have a little bit of food and some cocktails, and we sit on the back deck, and we talk about business or life, everybody's partner comes, so the husbands and wives are all there, and we push each other. We help each other with our businesses, with our lives. It's one of the most powerful things you can do. And if you started in college as study groups and keep doing it for the rest of your life, you will look up, and that's a support group like the big network that you can go to often and ask for help. And to me, it's really nice to know I don't have to figure this stuff out by myself. I've got a close-knit group of 18, 20 people, but then I've got another 600 or 700 that if I run across a problem I can't solve, I just put up my hand and ask for help, and 600 or 700 people send me their best ideas.
Could you please repeat the statement about you surround yourself?
Oh, yeah.
Excuse me. Please write this down. Please get this.
Yeah, if you're going to take any notes, this would be about the only thing to write down.
Please get this tattooed on your someplace this weekend, please? Please?
If we're going to do tattoos, I'll give you another one too.
Well,
Yeah. That quote, and it was a TED talk I gave, and I've just written a book on this idea too. You become what you focus on and like the people you spend time with. You become what you focus on and like the people you spend time with. Whatever you're reading, whatever you're studying, whatever you're learning, whatever you're putting into your mind, and whoever you choose to spend your time with will pretty much dictate what your life will look like a decade from now. If you're whatever, you become what you focus on and like the people you spend time with. So you've got to be really vigilant in, am I reading the right stuff? Am I spending time on the right things? Am I putting the right stuff in my brain? Am I doing things that are going to help me grow and improve as a person, as an individual, as a craftsperson? And have I surrounded myself, not with people like me, as in similar, but people that I want to be like? You know, they always say you're the average of your 5 closest friends. For some of you, that's awesome. For some of you, it's time to get new friends. Sorry. But you know, I run into 30, 40, and 50-year-olds that look at the group they hang with and realize they're not helping me at all. They're not doing anything to support me. And that's, in my opinion, that's a dangerous place to be, because you need that support group of smart, bright, talented, high-integrity people to hold you accountable and to make sure that you're living up to your goals, your values, the things that you want to achieve. Not anybody else's definition of success, your definition of success.
John's words are based on a lot of experience, but they're also very well received around the world. Since 2011, John has been chosen as one of the top 100 business thought leaders in America, and has been recognized as one of the top small business influencers in America. John also has that honor as international now, I believe.
Global, and I got nominated today as one of the top 500 leadership trainers in the world.
There you go. John has been named the Director of Best Practice Innovation at the Best Practice Institute. He is internationally recognized for his work in executive coaching, innovation, team building, business excellence, teaching, and leadership. Business excellence. These are engineers, John, both our colleagues in Edgeland as well as here on campus. And when it comes to business excellence, solving a problem is usually at the top of the list of the person who has that problem. They want problem solvers.
Yeah.
Engineers, by their nature, by their vocation or passion, are very good problem solvers. How does solving a problem lead to business excellence?
Well, it'll be interesting. It's not solving the problem per se, it's executing the solution.
But moment. But see, when we started our innovation journey, we knew that we needed a great idea to make that a successful innovation. Now you're telling us it's all about execution, so it's idea plus execution equals innovation, successful innovation.
Yeah. Well, it's like you look at, I teach strategy at Wharton every year. I'm going to my 14th year. I give you my whole class in one sentence. All effective strategy is just value differentiation times execution. Value differentiation times execution. Value differentiation is innovation. See, I mean, it's different, it's new, it's unique. It's got to be valued, or it isn't a product, it's a hobby, and then you got to be able to execute on it. I had the great pleasure and honor of teaching the top 8 employees at U.S. Trust last week. Out of 98,000 employees, these were the top 8 high potentials. And one of the things I said to them is, there is no shortage of creative ideas. There's no shortage of bright people. There's no shortage of whiz-bang, neat, innovative ideas. There's a huge shortage of people that can take ideas and turn them into reality. That idea of disciplined execution, of accountability around that stuff, it's probably that's not probably, it is the #1 issue I face with almost all my clients worldwide. At my class at Wharton, I always get about 100 to 120 senior executives. It's not a regular, they're all CEOs, senior executives, most of them running billion-dollar companies. And I've asked them year after year after year, what percentage of companies that know how to succeed, that have a great idea, that have an innovative idea, that have a great strategic plan, what percentage of them effectively execute the plan, take that idea and bring it to market? 10 to 15%. If you want to, I mean, there are lots and lots of bright people in the world today. There are not a lot of people that can take great ideas and figure out how to turn them into something you can sell, or turning into something that has value in the marketplace. And, you know, I'm not all driven about money, but we're talking about business, and businesses run off profit. So you don't build a business unless you wanted to give all well, even if you want to do that. I ran one of the Rockefeller Foundations for 6 years. we ran it like a business, and I wanted it to be massively profitable because I could take all that profit and reinvest it back in our mission. None of us made more money. There was a limit to how much everyone on staff could make. But the goal for me was, let's not just make enough to pay our bills and do it. Let's make so much damn money it's disgusting, because then we're going to turn around and go try to save part of the world with it. The Rockefeller Foundation that I ran did research on marine species, marlin, sailfish, tuna, sharks, things like that. And we were out trying to save them. And so every business at its heart is there to make as much profit as possible. Even if you're a nonprofit, then you just turn around and do more great things with it.
At the age of 26, John was named the CEO of an international Rockefeller Foundation, overseeing projects in 20 countries and reporting directly to the chairman of the board, Winthrop Rockefeller III.
You have like I meant like my obituary or something,
Oh, I can tell other stories too.
It would be my obituary. Yeah.
You had a very interesting baptism by fire as a leader.
Yeah.
And could you cite some of those stories about your mentor who would bring you a book?
Yeah. It's interesting when you guys will love this. When I was around your age, roughly, I just figured out that I'm going to figure out what I really want to do and what I want my first job to be. And most of you in here you guys are going to be a little bit less, but most people at your age today have between 5 and 7 careers in their life. Not jobs, completely different careers. I turned 50 in 2 months, and I've had 5 different careers, completely different. But when I was in college, I said, what do I really, really love to do? And that was mostly laying on the beach, drinking, fishing, playing golf. So I said, how can I get a job to get paid to do that? And I looked around and I said, I go to work for Bacardi Rum doing, events or something like that because I like rum. Or I could work for like a big like Club Med, and go to all their places. Or I could work for a boat company like Hatteras and go fishing and be on their fishing team. And then this other job came along, and it was the Rockefeller Foundation I worked for was the Billfish Foundation. And my job was to travel all over the world to marlin fishing tournaments, lay on the beach, drink, play golf, do an ESPN TV show, and get paid to do it. Now, when I went out of college, I got hired as their director of marketing and public relations. That's what my degree was in. And I pretty quickly became the right-hand man to the CEO, only for the reason that I was studying constantly. I'll give you guys an example. When I graduated, I didn't write any resumes. I didn't send out a single resume. Right now, I think the average is 1 job offered for every 900 blind resumes sent. What I did is I sent out letters to everyone I had networked with my junior and senior year, everyone I met, because I went and volunteered everywhere I could in the industry I wanted to be in. Went and met as many people, and I sent letters out and said, hey, I'm graduating with this. This is really the kind of job I want to get. Here's where my expertise is. I won a couple awards, blah, blah, blah. And I got 11 job offers from that. And I decided I really wanted the one with Rockefellers, so I wrote a 26-page proposal instead of sending my resume. I studied them like it was my final exam. I studied everything about them, their market, their competitors, the history of the foundation, where it was going, where nonprofit was going, what nonprofit marketing was doing. And I wrote up the biggest proposal I could, beautiful, had it triple checked. This is back when Kinko's only had red and blue ink, so a lot of red and blue charts and stuff, and all this stuff. And I sent it to them, and when I went to interview, they actually flew me down, sent a private jet for me. I landed, I met Mr. Rockefeller, said, well, first of all, I love this. This is how stupid and also how confident I was. I won't say cocky because I wasn't totally that, but I was pretty confident. I go to meet Mr. Rockefeller in his private apartment, and I walk in, he goes, would you like something to drink? And I said, yes, sir. What do you have? He goes, rum and Coke. I go, sounds good to me. So I sit down and have it. He goes, I only have 2 questions for you. When do you want to start and how much do you want to make? I said, I can start August 13th because I come back from a fishing trip with my mom on August 12th, and I'd like to make $19,000 a year. He went, done. I went, shit, didn't ask for enough. Now, you laugh, like 19 grand, that's great. In 1989, when I graduated, the average salary out of college was $14,000. So I was 30%, 20% above any of my friends. But then I became the right-hand man to the CEO, and 2 years later, he had a nervous breakdown in the middle of one of our board meetings. We had 4 billionaires on our board, Mr. Rockefeller, Don Tyson of Tyson Chicken, Greg Norman, the golfer, was on our board. Everybody on our board was worth at least $100 million. And they were grilling the heck out of him. He couldn't take it. He broke down and started crying. He got up and walked out of the room. And Don Tyson looked at me and goes, could you run the meeting? I said, yes, sir. And he goes, great, you're in charge. Welcome to being the CEO at 26. They terminated the other guy and made me the CEO right there. And I went, wow, and they were going to bring in a new CEO, and I'm going to tell this story because it was really interesting very quickly. They decided at first they just let me run it for a little while, but then they said, no, we really need some adult supervision around this place. And so they were going to bring in another guy with a lot of nonprofit experience. And I'll never forget, I met him, and they said, he's going to be your boss, so we'd like you to go to lunch with him and see if you like him and if you get along with him, because we like you and we'd like you to stay and maybe run the foundation one day, but you're too young right now at 25, you can't do it. So you'll work for this other guy for a couple of years, and then he's in his 50s. When he retires, you'll be able to take over. So I go to lunch with him, and we go to the top of the bank building in Miami, and because that's where our offices were. And up there's a big restaurant, private banker's restaurant thing. We walk in there, hey, I'll make up a name, hey, Mr. Smith, how you doing? And he waves in, he goes, we have your regular table for you right over here, sir. And we go down, we have your iced tea for you. And he's walking through, he's waving, everybody in the place is waving at him. I'm like, wow, this guy, they know him in this really high-end private restaurant. He's got his favorite table, they've got his iced tea out, everybody in the place knows him, right? And then in the middle of lunch, he looks at the waiter and goes, excuse me, where's the bathroom? And I went, he's never been here before. He's never been in this building before. But they know his name, he has a favorite table, they have his iced tea made with sugar just the way he likes it, and everybody in the place knows him. Until I figured out that he had gotten there earlier and given him $100 to say, call me by name when I come in, tell me you have my favorite table, tell me I have iced tea. And he didn't know anybody, but he walked through the restaurant going like this. And if you're in a restaurant and somebody waves at you, what do? You go, who the hell? Honey, who is that? Who is that guy waving at us? And I remember going back to Mr. Rockefeller saying, I don't understand what's going on here. I'm too young to understand this, but something is wrong. Something's wrong. He embezzled from us the minute he got hired. From the second he got there, he started stealing money. He ran us millions of dollars in the hole in about 7 months. And I'll got to finish the story because it's just so much fun. We had a trip to the Virgin Islands together, and to go down there to do a tournament with Mr. Rockefeller. He sponsored a giant marlinfish tournament every year, and we gave all the money to the Boy Scouts there. And I come back one day from playing golf, and there's like 26 messages on the voicemail in my hotel room screaming at me. Get to my room now, blah, blah, blah. I'm working on the strategic plan, rah, rah, rah. So I go running down there. I'm still wearing spikes. I got the golf glove in my back pocket. I've had a couple of beers. I run up, and I go, what do you need? He goes, I've been out working on the strategic plan all day in the hotel room. I've been working from the morning. Where have you been all day? I said, I was playing golf. He goes, golf? You're fired. I go, okay. And I walked back, and I packed up. And on the way out of town, I swung by the boat to say goodbye to Mr. Rockefeller and say, well, Wynn, I just want to come by and say it's been a pleasure working for you for the last couple of years. It's great, but I got terminated by David today. And he said, really? What for? I said, playing golf. And he went, huh, who are you playing golf with? I said, good question. One he forgot to ask me. The head of ESPN, the head of like every major magazine, and he goes, what is your job title, John? I said, Director of Marketing and Public Relations. And you spent the entire day with the top people in the industry and all of the top magazines and news. I'm like, yeah. And he goes, you're not fired, he's fired. Go ahead, take the jet back to Miami. When you get back, your first job will be to fire him. And that was unbelievable. So it was baptism by fire. And Mr. Rockefeller had a right-hand man named Charlie Owen. And every Monday, Charlie would walk in my office and hand me a book. And he would say, I will see you on Friday for lunch, and you could get to give me a book report. So for 7 years, every Monday I got a book. Every Friday I had to do a book report. But he asked me something interesting that was really different. He wouldn't say, what's the book report? He goes, what will you do differently because you read that book? In other words, what are you going to take action on? And I'd tell him that. He'd write it down. He'd say, great, you will now be held accountable for doing that in your job. So every Monday I got a book. Every Friday I made a book report. The next Monday I was held accountable for actually doing the stuff I'd learned the week before. It wasn't just theory. I had to put it into action. Hence the reason that I'm so big on accountability and execution. Sorry I rambled. I thought it was a funny story. I enjoyed telling it.
So for our colleagues in Edgeland, what John illustrates is a very important concept for you. If you haven't yet pursued it, you should do so with extreme vigor. And that is to align yourself with people in your organization who can help you.
Yep.
And that, however, comes with an obligation on your side. And now I talk to everyone here. The obligation is, if somebody is aligning themselves with you, what are they giving to you? Anyone? What are they giving to you? By the way, a little hint, they can't get it back.
Yeah.
Time. The fact that they're offering their time, which they're not going to get back, to you is a telltale sign for you to take action on that and to see that as an investment in yourself. What do you do with investments? I know you're not business majors. What do you do with investments? You try to get a return on that investment. So every time somebody in your network, go back to one of John's key points, N, every time someone in your network invests their time, which they're never getting back, in you, what do they expect in return? Begins with an I? An investment.
Back at them.
Back to them.
Yeah.
See, what John just illustrated every Friday, he was giving his mentor, his coach, his champion, his rabbi, whatever you want to call it, he was giving back the investment, earning that person the next step forward in the relationship. Without the return on the investment, the relationship stalls.
Actually, from a networking standpoint, it should be about 85 to 90% you giving and only 10% taking. Yeah. In a mentor-mentee relationship, it's pretty close to 50-50. But when you're building that professional network, the idea is add value, add value, add value constantly until you need help one day. So, I mean, today, pretty much every morning, I spend 30 to 40 minutes, part of my job, looking for some really cool information. Something from the Harvard Business Review, something from a blog, something that I look at and go, wow, that's cool. And then once I figure that out, I take it and I send it to 200 or 300 people in my network and say, I know you pretty well. This is an area you're interested in, so I thought you'd find value in this. I've been doing that for 17 years. If I ask for help, they jump through burning hoops to give me help. The reverse is, if I jumped on a plane tomorrow, and I used to do a lot of business in Tokyo, flew 26, 27 hours to get there and show up and everything. If I opened up my computer at 3:30 in the morning Tokyo time, and there's an email from someone on network saying they need help, Johnny's staying up for a couple more hours to give them every contact, every idea, every bit of information I have. And it only happens a couple times a year, and I only have to ask for help a couple times a year. The rest of the time, we're all just adding value and helping each other, just generally. Here's a great article. Here's somebody to introduce you to. Here's something I thought you'd find valuable. Here's a great book I just read. Here's a cool app I'm using that's helping my business. Just constantly adding value until that day that you go, whoa, corporate espionage. Anybody know how to deal with this? And 300 answers come back.
John has been, for as long as I've known John, for 4+ years, he has been affectionately known as the human Cliff Notes, in that John reads massive amounts of research, insight, information, and it's not just all business related, although John is addicted to business. John, you read on average 120 business related books each year, listen to an additional 50+ audiobooks.
I've upped the numbers recently.
Okay. So where do you find the time?
I didn't own a TV for 12 years. I had a really, really great thing happen to me. I lost everything I owned in my life in Hurricane Andrew. I lived in Miami on the water. When the hurricane came through, it wiped out everything. And at the time, I was CEO at the foundation, so I was making some pretty good money. I had some nice toys. Had a wine collection, art collection, all this stuff. And we had 11 feet of water go through the house with only a 12-foot ceiling. So you're pretty gone. And you know what? It was one of the greatest things that ever happened because I learned it was just stuff. And I didn't buy a whole bunch of it back because I realized my life went on absolutely fine without owning any of it. I slept in my car for 11 weeks, and then I lived in an abandoned apartment with the hole in the roof, sleeping in fiberglass and dead cockroaches for another 13 weeks, and thought it was awesome because I actually had some place to lay down and go to sleep. And on the scale of pain, that's nothing. Many people go through things much, much worse, but it was an awesome learning experience. Like if my house burned down today, as long as my wife and my dog was okay, it's just a house. I can rebuild it. I've got insurance. Even if I couldn't, it's not that big a deal. The key thing is do you have your friends? Do you have your health? Do you have your mental capacities? And that's what I learned there. So that was the big lesson of how to get time. I didn't own a TV for 12 years. I don't watch movies. I don't like them, so I just don't waste time on it. It's basically this. If it isn't fun, getting me healthier, making me wealthier, spending time with my wife, or helping other people, I just don't do it. It just doesn't exist in my world. I won't spend time on things that don't add high value. My life is too short. Everybody's life is too short. So I've got really clear boundaries. about what is important to me, what's fun, what's exciting, what I'm passionate about. And if it doesn't meet that, I'm pretty aggressive about saying, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that anymore. And a lot of people I know spend an exorbitant amount of their time on things that really don't add value, but they don't hold themselves accountable for that. I mean, the average American watches 37 hours of TV a week. Yeah, 37 hours. Now you add in internet and everything else. If you cut all that down to just the stuff that you truly valued, that matched what you really love to do, you'd find out you have tons and tons of free time. Although I traveled 218 days last year, I got a massive amount of free time. I take about 3.5 months of vacation a year because I tack it into my business stuff. I could do more, but I'm going, let's keep balance between work hard, play hard, have fun, keep my relationship with my wife as strong as I possibly can. We don't have kids. That was a career decision. You can't, in my opinion, you can't travel 218 days a year and have kids. It would be insanely selfish. So my wife can't have kids, so that worked out that way, and we decided not to adopt. But that's also freed us up. My wife, she is in the business with me. She travels with me on the good trips. The Cayman Islands, the Virgin Islands. Yeah. When I go to Detroit, I pretty much go by myself. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. She's like, oh, here's where we're going this year. We're going to Toronto, and we're going to Barbados. And I go, yeah, and I'm going to Boston and Washington, Detroit, Natchitoches, Louisiana. These are not the trips you're going on. You're going to all the glamorous ones. Oh, they're putting you up at the Ritz. I'm going on that one. Why not the Holiday Inn? That's a fun trip, too.
So you mentioned Detroit. Detroit's on the way back, doing very well. There's an interesting observation you've had about Detroit, the large automobile industry and its impact on the city, and how the biggest game in town failed to invest in the community.
Well, it's a failure of leadership, in my opinion. And this is a lot of opinion, but I'll give you some research, and then I'll give you the opinion. Last year, about a year and a half ago, I did a proprietary research study of 8,000 high potential employees at top companies around the world. I ran the Global Leadership Development Program at Merrill Lynch for 7 years, the Mayo Clinic for 11 years. I do the leadership program for Microsoft, for Apple, for GE, for Qualcomm. So I had access to a lot of very, very talented people. And these are what I call voluntary employees. They're so good at what they do that if they quit at 9 in the morning, they'd have a job at the competitor by noon, probably at a 30% salary increase. So they don't go to work because they have to. They go because they want to. So I asked them, what is it about your company that makes you want to go there? And they said it has have a great culture, working with really cool, smart people on fun stuff, and working for a leader that I admire. Notice what's not on there. Pay. As long as the pay is 10% above or below what they would make to do the same job anyplace else, in other words, it's fair, it's market level, then money comes off the table because you're not going to get any more anyplace else. It's not like you can jump for a 50% increase. You can jump for a 5 or a 10% increase, maybe. So money comes off the table, and you say, hey, for what I'm doing, I'm pretty much getting paid pretty much what everybody else in the country gets paid to do this job. That's fair. So then it's culture, it's people, it's meaningful work, and then leadership. And when I asked them, what do you look for in a leader you would willingly follow, it was what I call the 7 C's of leadership. And I'll go through them quickly. First one was character. Character. Tell the truth all the time, period. There's another great research study done by 2 guys, Kouzes and Posner, wrote a great book called The Leadership Challenge. It's a 30-year study, 4 continents, 1.3 million respondents, and 89% of the people worldwide had the same first answer, honesty. That's what I want from a leader I will willingly follow. So, and it fit perfectly with my research. Character, credibility, honesty. The rest up until the 7th one are not in any particular order. They're all just sort of mixed together. 1 and 7 are actually in order. Next one is courage. But interestingly enough, it wasn't the courage to take big, bold risks, because they expect that from your leader. It was the courage to be vulnerable, to admit I don't have all the answers. I need help. That's why you're on my team. Not all the time. You don't want to be quivering in the corner. You got to be confident about 90% of the time. But what they said is, I want a leader who's authentic and courageous enough to show vulnerability when it's appropriate. That was courage. Next one was competence. Got to be really, really good at what you do, period. And the word I like to use is towering competence. The next one was collaboration. Collaboration. And here's what everybody said is, I know you're the boss. You don't need to lord it over me. I understand that you make or break my career, but don't constantly remind me of that. I want you to be a partner, a peer, a team member. I want you to roll up your sleeves, get in there, and work with me every day. And if every now and then you've got to pull rank on me, I'm cool with that. But if you try to pull rank every single day, I'm out of here because I'm not taking that kind of abuse, that kind of micromanagement. The next one was, let me see where I am, communication. Communication. Interesting thing about communication, it wasn't necessarily you had to be able to get up front and give a big speech. What they said is great leaders ask great questions and listen. They're great at asking just the right question at just the right time, and then they're intense listeners. They're really, really focused on them. The next one, 6. Oh, there's only 7 of them. I was like, I got to come up with 4 more to get to 9. It's only 7. 6th one was compassion. And you all in this room will appreciate this because it's you that created it. It's the compassion to understand that I'm not going to give my soul to the company. I want time with my friends. I want to go be with my kids. I want to volunteer. I want to go home and make craft brew and drink it until I fall down. But but my life is not my job. I'll give you the 40, 45, 50 hours, but I'm not bleeding the company colors anymore. And your generation and one or two, me and him are both in our 50s, or I turned 50 in a couple months. When I got my first job, when my boss said jump, it was how high, sir. It was always a man, and it was command and control. It's completely different now. It's mutual respect. It's compassion. And I got to tell you, the leaders my age, when I tell them this, they cringe. Like, I didn't spend 25 years and become vice president and have to suck up to some kid. And I go, yeah, you did. If you want talent, that's what you got to do. You got to treat them with compassion. And the key word there is respect. And what all the research shows, mine and a bunch of other people, is folks your age up to about 33 say, from a leadership standpoint, if you demonstrate competence, Mr. or Miss Leader, and you treat me with respect, then I will respect and follow you. But you have to demonstrate competence and respect first before I decide to follow you. Whew, man, you tell it to somebody 45, 50, 55 years old, they are really not happy about that. Because they're like, it's not my job to demonstrate competence and show respect to an employee. Yes, it is. So there's a big shift there in the leadership stuff. Then the last one, number 7, and this is the one that Whit was alluding to, is contribution. And here's what I believe, that once you've done the first 6 and you've acquired some level of authority, access to resources, some sort of level maybe of personal wealth or personal influence, that you have an obligation as a leader to give back to the people you serve, which is your employees, to your customers, to your community, and the world. And I use Detroit as an example. If you go back in 1954 through 64, the highest per capita income in the entire United States of America was Detroit. They were the richest, the highest per capita income. If you go back exactly 20 years, in 1994, Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler threw off $13.9 billion in profit. Billion with a B in profit, not in revenues. How much money did they donate to the city of Detroit? $2 million. How much did they spend on lobbying in Washington? $500 million. Now you fast forward to today. Let me see if I can do this off the top of my head. The reported unemployment rate in Detroit is 27%. The actual unemployment rate is 50 to 55%. 62% of the kids that live in Detroit live in poverty. 47% of the adult population is illiterate. They closed down 44 schools last year. There are 110,000 vacant lots, and there are 91,000 houses you can buy for $1 or less. Right now, the average response time, if you get shot, which happens fairly often there, is 28 minutes. You're pretty much dead. That's as fast as, because they don't have enough police or ambulances to go around. They shut off the lights in downtown in the evenings because they don't have enough money to pay for it. They owe $1.2 billion to more than 100,000 creditors. If in 1994, Ford, General Motors, and those 3 big car companies had said, you know, our headquarters are here. This is where we draw talent from. This is where our community is. Why don't we voluntarily each put $1 billion back in, or $500 million? And they had done that in 94, 95, 96, 97, all the way to 2000. You know what? Detroit would be one of the greatest cities in America today. It would have the best infrastructure, the best schools, the best parks, the best art, the best, everything. And those big 3 companies would have gotten, in my opinion, a tremendous boost, because why? The hardest thing there is for a company like that is to attract talent. And there is no way you're attracting talent to live in Detroit right now. If it had been one of the greatest cities, everybody would want to live there. They'd all want to be in the art scene. They want to be there. They'd be able, and the people that live there would look up and say, hey, these 3 companies put a lot of money in our community. That's my first choice for employment. And when I got out of the top schools and the top talent graduated, the first place they would go would be there, because They had a relationship already. Now, I'm just using that hypothetically, but I'll give you a real-life example. For many companies in Japan, the CEOs are paid 15 years after their bonuses, 15 years after they leave the company on the stock price 15 years later. If you know that after I quit, I have to get paid on how well the company is doing a decade and a half from now, you sit at your desk and you make 20-year decisions. When you know you're going to get paid on this quarter's earnings, you make 3-week decisions, 4-week decisions. When I was at U.S. Trust a couple weeks ago, I had some of their top people there. No, actually, I was at the Financial Services Institute with 1,000 people in the audience, and they asked me the question, why has some of these companies failed, some of the big ones? And I said, it's pretty easy. When you're forced by Wall Street to do double-digit growth every year, year after year after year, eventually you hit a place where it just doesn't happen unless you lie, cheat, and steal, because you can't make it happen. You can't do those numbers. That, to me, is where we got leadership wrong. And if we get to a point where leaders think long-term and they think about how to contribute back, and maybe not just money, but time, expertise, resources, whatever it is, that group of leaders will create another group of leaders, which is the number one job of a leader, to create more leaders, but they'll create leaders who think long-term and concerned long-term. And I'll add one thing to this. When I talk about that in Australia or New Zealand about contribution, or Canada, standing ovation. When I talk about it in America in front of business companies, not one person even claps. They just don't think contribution is important. I was going to write a book on this, and my publisher told me, we love it, except you're going to have to take number 7 off the list, because no one in America will buy it. And I went, problem, big problem.
The notion of accountability in the workplace, and especially in leadership roles. When we began our journey, I shared with our EDGE colleagues as well as our students on campus that they are the future leaders of industry, many of you in engineering, but maybe even some of you not. And with that comes a tremendous responsibility, but also to be accountable to the stakeholders, to the consumer marketplace. You've spent a lot of time on achieving business excellence with accountability and the culture of accountability. Can you share with us a couple of examples of the culture of accountability and how that allows the leaders in their positions to be successful?
Well, it's interesting. About 5 years ago, Apple hired me to do an entire class on accountability and execution, because they saw it as one of the most central issues. Tons of brilliant engineers and brilliant people there, but they weren't shipping. You know, they weren't getting stuff to the market, and the stuff that did get to the market wasn't anywhere as good as it could have been or should have been, according to Steve Jobs when he was still there and alive. If I talk to most of my clients today and they were to ask me, I would tell you what they ask me for, they always ask me this thing. The one thing I desperately need is employees with an ownership mentality. Employees who look at every dollar that comes in as if it were their own. They want to maximize revenues, increase market share, increase customer satisfaction, decrease costs. In other words, they take full accountability for their job and adding value to the company. There's two sides to this coin. There's the side that the company owes the employee before they hold them accountable. And I'm going to quickly teach this. I don't even know if you've heard me teach this real quickly. There's only 5 things it takes to create a culture of accountability. 5 key things you got to do if you're going to hold people accountable. Step 1 is 100% clarity plus authority. You've got to be exceedingly clear about your expectations. What do you want? What does success look like? What are the metrics? And here's the other tattoo. Ambiguity breeds mediocrity. It's one of my favorite lines in the entire world. Ambiguity breeds mediocrity. The only way to hold someone accountable is to wipe out all ambiguity, to make it clear, specific, and the word I use always is binary. It's 1 or it's 0, it's black or it's white, it's yes or it's no, no guessing, no ambiguity. So that's one, is 100% clarity, then give them the appropriate authority to go out and execute it. Nothing more frustrating than for a talented person to be given full authority or accountability and no authority, because they're just setting you up for failure. You're completely responsible for this, but you can't make any decisions, you can't request any resources, you're not allowed to tell anybody what to do. That's called, I quit right now, let me leave. So that's step 1. Step 2 then is 100% agreement. That whoever you're going to hold accountable, actually, as one of the I coach a CEO in Vienna, I used to, he said, we must have the full eyes meeting. You got to sit down and look them in the eyes, and they have to look at you and say, I understand the measures, I understand the due dates, I understand the metrics of success, I understand the resources, I think this is a reasonable goal, you've given me enough authority, I accept accountability for this project. If you don't have those 2 things, you don't have accountability. And I did a speaking tour last year across Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and Latin America. I was in front of maybe 8,000 small to medium-sized business owners. I asked them, how many of you on your most important projects, the stuff you got to get done, stuff that's mission critical, how many of you have on a scale of 1 to 10 or a 9 or a 10 on 100% accountability authority and 100% agreement? Guess how many hands went up? 1. And I looked at the guy and go, you're lying. He goes, you're right. Yeah. Nobody. So now you see why this is such a big issue, that it's desperately needed, but not many people do it well. Then I'll give you the last 3 real quick. The next one's track and post, that you need to create a dashboard. If you're going to hold someone accountable, they need to know where they stand against that goal. And the 2 key ideas behind the dashboard is it must be really easy to understand and highly visible. So they can look at it right away and go, this is exactly where I stand against my goal, and everybody sees it, which now scares the hell out of most people because they go, everybody sees it. Here's what happens in most companies. 10% of the employees love it because they always achieve goal or exceed goal. So they're standing there going, look, I'm 100% of quota. Yeah. Did you notice I'm at the top of the list again? Yeah. You got about 70%, 80% in the middle that just freak out. They don't know what to do. And then you got about 10% at the other end that fall down on the ground like a 2-year-old with a wet diaper crying, you can't do this. And you go, it's been a pleasure working with you. We're going to make you available to industry. Boom, because they're never going to be accountable. Now that everybody knows they're not, they run away. That big group in the middle, most people think that measurement equals punishment, that I'm tracking you so I can yell at you. That's why number 4 is coach, mentor, and train. Coach, mentor, and train. And what that says is the minute somebody gets off track, you don't punish them, you run in and help them. You help them as much as you can. You need some more resources. You need training. You need a mentor. You need a coach. What do you need? What can we do to make sure you achieve your goals? And then the last one is reward and punish. Number 5. If somebody does it great, you put them up on a pedestal. You give them an award. You give them a bonus. You give them a new plastic plant for their office, something very meaningful. But if they don't do it, then you got to deal decisively with mediocrity. And you guys can learn this, for yourself. I mean, you can do this for yourself. Clear goals, track them. Get a coach, get a mentor. You do great, you reward yourself. You do bad, you punish yourself. You hit your head against the wall. You take something away from yourself. I have a lot of clients now that use this for everybody in the company, all the way up to the CEO. Everybody follows this stuff, and it's all visible, and it changes. But boy, accountability and execution, those to me right now, well, talent, the ability to work well with other people, the ability to hold yourself accountable and deliver results are probably the 4 most important things you got to have to get employed.
John, let's do the equation.
Which one?
The engineers love equations.
The T plus E plus ECF?
Yep.
Cool. I told you I wrote that book in 2009. I can tell you it's 53,518 words. I didn't write it, I spoke it. I used dictation software. And I found this really cool software program called Wordle. And when you load the text of a document in, what it does is it creates a word cloud. And the bigger the word is, the more times it showed up. So I loaded it in there, really cool picture of my book, and then I realized this is really skewed. So I called about 20 of the top business authors, business thought leaders in the world and said, can you send me your book? And I won't drag it through it. I got about 300,000 pages from the top business thinkers, top business management, the best of the best, loaded it in there. It spit out a picture. The picture was still way too complex, so I boiled it down to what I call the formula for business success, and this is it. It's T plus C plus ECF in brackets, T plus C plus ECF. No, the T plus C plus ECF is in brackets.
Oh,
yeah, because engineers like the right formula. And the only reason I know that it wasn't ECF, bracket, times DE. And
I'm gonna
not try to plug numbers in it, because it doesn't work. I made this up drinking beer at a barbecue restaurant.
T plus C plus ECF
times DE. So here's what it is. And to me, this isn't everything you need in business, but if you don't do these 4 things really, really well, it's darn near impossible to build a sustainably successful organization, whether it's a nonprofit or a multi-billion-dollar global company. So the T stands for talent. You want to get the best people you can possibly get on your team. And remember this, that doesn't mean they have to work for you. That's books, that's videos, that's audiobooks, that's your network, that's your mastermind group. You could have us surrounded by amazing amount of top talent and not have a single employee. So talent is number 1. You want the biggest group of, if you're hiring people, you want the best person you can possibly get. Now, it doesn't mean everybody has to have 4 advanced degrees and have been a former space shuttle pilot, but for the job they're going to do, they're very, very talented at the job they're going to do. So talent is the first one. Next one is culture. And there's 2 elements to culture. The C. You want a winning culture for the employees, a place that's fun to work, where they're passionate, where they're working on great stuff, they're working with their friends. So they want a culture that attracts top talent, but then the manager wants a culture that delivers results. So it's winning culture for the employees, ownership mentality for the managers or the owner of the company. The next one, ECF, is extreme customer focus. Extreme customer focus. I've got a, it's interesting. We were talking about. I just got hired to do a one-day seminar with 28 startup companies. And when I say startup, they've been around a couple years. Each one of them started off about $2 million. The largest one is $40 million. Vinny's portfolios, 28 companies. And the number one thing he said to me is, you've got to help our people understand that the customer is who's going to help us build the business. That we don't build the business with what we think is great. We take what the customer thinks and then we innovate on it. Then we iterate on it. Then we make it better. But we still, and here's one of my favorite phrases, whoever owns the voice of the customer owns the marketplace. Now, it doesn't mean the customer's always right, but the customer is the person who pays all the bills, and they are the one that has to go into their wallet and give you money. So if you don't understand what they really, really like, what they really, really value, what's important to them, then it's pretty hard to build something that they will pay for. Now, I know, and every one of you right now is going, yeah, but Steve Jobs said the customer doesn't own, he built that asset. That's one in a zillion. I can show you literally 500,000 other companies that don't have somebody like Steve Jobs at the helm that need to listen to the customer. I knew Steve. I got to work for Apple. I was there. Actually, he died on a Thursday, and they brought me in on Monday to talk to everybody about change. He was a monomaniac on a mission. Asshole, for sure. But he absolutely had a vision, and he was going to drive that company with his vision. And he was one of the rare, unique individuals whose vision was actually better than what their customer thought. Very, very rare. I can count on one hand with a couple fingers left over the number of people I know like that in the world. All the rest of them, extreme customer focus. Better listen. And then the DE, which he's underlined 37 times there, stands for disciplined execution. That if you have super talented people with a great culture that really listen to the customer, but they can't bring anything to market, they can't execute on it, it's all useless. So you've got to have that innovation, the creativity, the talent, the culture of innovation, but then you got to be able to actually take it and turn it into real products in the marketplace.
John, this equation always leads to the moment of truth.
Yeah.
What are some examples of moments of truth for certain industries or businesses?
Well, I teach another thing, especially to small businesses, called the web of value. And it's three things that I believe for most small businesses really drive their success. First one is VOC, voice of the customer, what I just said, own the voice of the customer. Next one that Whit is talking about is called moments of truth. Moments of Truth was created by a guy named Jan Carlson that was the CEO of Scandinavian Airway years ago. And they decided that they wanted to own the business traveler market because they could charge them really high fees for their plane tickets because they had no choice, they had to go. Usually their client was paying for it, they were flying every week. If you're going to have anybody as an airline, you want the business traveler because you're going to be most profitable. And they said, so we need to be the best in Scandinavia for the business traveler. So they went out and he interviewed a bunch of people, they talked to the customer, and here's what they figured out. In every process for them, from the minute you pick up the phone and call to make a reservation to when you get back home, hopefully with your luggage, there are hundreds and hundreds of touch points. There's only 3 or 4 or 5 moments of truth. Stuff that must be flawless every time. And if you become the best in the world at delivering the moments of truth, you've done sort of the Pareto principle. You've nailed the 20% of the stuff that generates 80% of the revenue, 80% of the happiness. I'll give you an example. Restaurants. There are hundreds of touch points. Was the parking lot well lit? Did they have big signage? Was it easy ingress, egress? Were the parking spots wide enough? Was the shrubbery attractive? When you went in, was the music at the right temperature? Was that place at the right loudness? Was the place at the right temperature? Though all these are touch points, there's only 4 moments of truth, 4 things that every restaurant must do flawlessly if they want to stay in business, build business, get wildly loyal customers who do the last thing, which is word of mouth. Go out and tell everybody how great this restaurant, you got to go there. So you guys help me. What are the 4 moments of truth for a restaurant? What do they have to do in order for you to go back? Good quality food. Clean, I heard. Clean. Cleanliness. Good quality food. Great service. Reasonable price. That's it. If you got a reasonable price, good service, good quality food, all in comparison to the price, and it's mega, mega clean, like Dragonfly, where I had dinner last night, I love that place. So, it's awesome. Now the reverse, let's say I take all of you guys out to barbecue. And we're there, and we walk. The place is gorgeous, beautiful. Looks like a log cabin. There's a guy out front playing a banjo. Bing, 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 bing. Welcome. And you get there, and you go inside. It's awesome, and it's beautiful, and the service is great. They sit us down, ice cold beer, and oh man, it smells good. And you look at the stuff. The prices are really reasonable. The food comes out. It's awesome. We're talking about how great it is, and you pick up thing, and you're just about to eat. Look, and there's a cockroach sitting on the edge of it. Are you ever going there again? That's a big no, right? But here's the problem. They got 169 out of 170 moments of truth. Perfect. They got 3 of the 4 moments, or touch points. They got 3 of the 4 moments of truth. Flawless. But you will never step foot in there again because you missed one of the moments of truth. What most businesses don't understand is figure out what your moments of truth are and do those flawlessly. And you're, in most part, and I've got friends that own restaurants, and they'll call me, oh, we're struggling, I don't have enough clients. I go, here's the deal. On a scale of 1 to 10, you have to be a 9 or a 10 on cleanliness, quality of your food, reasonable price, and good service. You get a 10 on all those, I promise you'll have all the business you could possibly handle. I told this to one guy not too long ago. So instead of doing that, he went out and painted a giant mural on the side of the wall and thought that would bring in more traffic. He's now bankrupt. Why? I went back. The bathrooms were still dirty. The service was mediocre. The food quality was okay, and the prices were really, really, really high for the quality of food and the quality of the service. And I don't like dirty bathrooms. So you looked at it and said, just the 4 stinking things he needed to do, he didn't focus on them. Boom, he's gone. The reverse is if he didn't worry about the mural, but said, this is going to be the cleanest restaurant you've ever stepped foot in. I'm always going to put out good quality food. I'm going to make sure I've got great waiters and waitresses that take great care of my people. And I'm going to try to price it as reasonable as I possibly can. And by the way, if you do the first 3, super clean, great service, great food quality, you could jack your prices by as much as 25%, no one will mind. So you don't even have to be that reasonable. People will pay more for those first 3 things. So what I always tell everybody is if you're going to start a business, what are your moments of truth? And if you're an employee, you've got moments of truth inside of your company for the other people you serve. I hate process. Sorry to say that, engineers. But if there's any place in a business you're going to have process, it's around the moments of truth. Because those things cannot fail. They've got to be fail-safe. They've got to be flawless. So that's the idea around moments of truth. Boy, that's some amazing stuff we get up there.
John, around moments of truth, there's also a concept that we've touched upon briefly here, but both Dan and Chip Heath have written about this extensively, called tripwires.
Yeah.
So a tripwire, just to review, a tripwire is normally associated with David Lee Roth, excuse me. I'm thinking Eddie
Green
Van Halen.
M&Ms.
Yeah.
Or no, brown M&Ms.
Brown M&Ms.
Brown
Does
M&Ms.
anybody know this story?
Does everybody know the story Brown M&Ms?
So Van Halen, which is, or David Lee Roth, which is sort of attributable to being a diva.
Sort of?
Well, go easy now. Some of their music's good.
I like the music.
Yeah. So they had embedded in this 30-page contract, page 17, that the band would always have, but only brown M&Ms in the dressing room.
Actually, it was the reverse. It must be 3 pounds of M&Ms with no brown M&Ms in it. So that guy had to go pour out 4 pounds or 5 pounds, pick all of it, and it had to be 3 pounds and no brown M&Ms.
So that level of detail led to something where the popular press reported Van Halen as a bunch of divas. But what they were looking for, and that Chip and Dan Heath reported on this in a book or a column called Tripwires, was that they were looking for a level of detail that was unparalleled in the industry. Think about it. Yeah, well, if you're strumming an electric guitar and there's a lot of ampage going through that, if somebody's not paying attention to the amount that is allowable or that the stadium will hold, you're going to end up with a dead guitar player. The thinking was, if they are not paying attention, the organizers, the arena owners and operators, if they're not paying attention to the little stuff, like brown M&Ms, they're not going to be paying attention to the big stuff.
They put that thing on the rider, the ampage and all their electrical stuff was the one before and the one after that.
It was deep into a very...
Like 28 pages in, and they would walk in the green room, and they'd look at the M&Ms, and they had a scale, and they would walk over, put it on, and weigh it, and if there was brown M&Ms or it wasn't the right weight, they went, shit, now we got to go check all the electrical. Because if they didn't get this right, they probably didn't read the thing before, the thing after. So it was a masterful way to say, how carefully did they read the contract? If they got there and it was exactly the right weight, and there was no brown M&Ms, they said, let's get drunk because everything's fine. You know, we don't have to worry about it because we're not going to blow up today. Because, like you said, they had unbelievably complex and dangerous pyrotechnics, electrical stuff set up. And if any of that went wrong, not that it would have hurt his brain at all, but it would have been a pretty big shock to David Lee there.
So the lesson for us as innovators is what tripwires do we have in our process? For the colleagues in Edge, what is your company doing to mitigate the risks by establishing a series of tripwires? If you're not, you're flying blind. Think about that.
Actually, I'm headed up to Wharton next month to teach that strategy class. One of the things I teach in there is scenario planning. And scenario planning as part of strategy speaks right to tripwires. There's three things you look for: probability, impact, and tripwires, or what I would call trigger points or red flags. So when you created a strategy and you're going there, you look at it and say, what's the probability something could go wrong, and how bad would it be if it did? If it's low probability, low impact, you just don't worry about it. Big deal. It goes wrong and you keep going. So what if but if it's high probability, high impact, there's a good possibility, or even medium probability and high impact, then that's the kind of stuff where you have triggers or tripwires or red flags, so that as soon as you get there, you go, uh-oh, we've just crossed a threshold, and now because we crossed this threshold, we're going to have to pivot, we're going to have to go in another direction, we're going to have to put a scenario into place to try to fix this before it blows up. And then this is a new idea. I don't know, have I told you about the Ford 1 hour rule? Brand new thing I just learned working with some folks from Ford. They've got a neat thing there that if a problem lands on your desk, you have 24 hours to fix it. If you can't fix it on your own in 24 hours, you must bring it to the entire senior management team immediately to get as much help as you can. Here's why the reason they found out. Managers would get a problem, and because of pride or whatever it was, they weren't courageous enough to mention it, they would sit on it for a couple of days trying to figure it out. Then about 3 or 4 days in, they'd say, I don't think I can do this, but now it's gotten so much bigger. So about a week or 10 days later, they finally brought it to the people up above, and now instead of it being a $50,000 problem, it was a $5 million problem. So the idea was you got 24 hours to solve it on your own. If not, go out and ask for as much help as you can. Kill the monster while it's small. I think in any business, I've instituted that in my little firm, and all of my clients, I've tried to get them to institute to say, you got a rule here. And if you're in a super high speed company, maybe it's not even 24 hours. Maybe it's 3 hours. Maybe it's by end of business today. If you can't fix it, don't be ashamed. Ask for as much help as you can and kill the monster while it's small before it grows into a giant problem that could potentially bankrupt your business or kill your company or really upset one of your major clients. Neat rule.
In John's awesomely simple book, there's a quote here in the introduction, which you all have by Sakai. I have spent years looking for the pattern of what differentiates great companies from great failures. This plays back to Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. Engineers and patterns are synonymous, John, as is problem solving.
Yep.
How do engineers fit into this equation that you've just described to us for the last hour?
Well,
achieving business excellence.
Let me explain first why patterns are so important. Several years ago, I read an interesting book called The Cambridge Handbook of Expertise and Expert Performance. 1,300-page book written by experts about how to become an expert. I'll save you the reading. It said if you want to become world-class at something, truly great, the best of the best, there's 4 Ps. It takes 4 Ps. First one is passion. You got to love it, which it's self-evident. If you don't love it, you're obviously not going to become great at it. But it's a challenge for you to say is, let me get into something that I really enjoy. Now, I might not be here for the next 20 years, but boy, right now this is exciting and passionate and fun to me, and I'm going to give it a shot for a year or 2 years or 3 years, and I'm going to give it 100%. And if I look up and I'm not having fun, I'll just pivot and go someplace else. So passion's the first one. Now we're going to go for expertise. The next one is persistence. Did any of you read a book, Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell? Okay, anybody remember the number? 10 years or 10,000 hours. 10 years or 10,000 hours, and a bunch of you got it. So you've got to be passionate about something, then you have to persist at it for 10 years or 10,000 hours. And right now with the Olympics going on, this is a classic example. Then the third one is practice. But it's a special kind of practice called deliberate practice. And what deliberate practice says is every time you practice, you make it a little bit harder. You get a coach, a mentor, a trainer, but every practice, because you could practice something for 10 years, but if you're practicing it wrong, you become really, really crappy over the next decade. So you always got to have somebody pushing you, helping you, making you get better, coaches, mentors, trainers, whatever it might be. And you look at the Olympic athletes, they're a classic example of passionate, 10 years, 10,000 hours or more, with a whole cadre of coaches and people watching them and giving them advice and helping them. And then when you do those first three, you arrive at the fourth one, which is pattern recognition. Pattern recognition. And if you, I didn't notice this until the last couple of years, but now I've seen a pattern about pattern recognition. If you look at almost anybody in any field, they'll tell you the best of the best of the best in our field, the way they got there is they can see things that nobody else sees. They understand things that nobody else understands. They see the pattern. They understand. It always reminds me of that thing in The Matrix, when all of a sudden he sees the numbers and he realizes, what are you going to do? That's the way it works in the real world when you get really good at something. That's how great musicians can just look at a piece of sheet music and hear it in their head. How world-class athletes can see the entire field. My favorite example is chess grandmasters. You know, a new player to chess, only, at least when I was new, I only remembered one rule. As long as I don't take my hand off the piece, I can continue to move it. So you go, you move it around the board until the other person goes, and you go, and you put it there. You get a little, I mean, we all remember that. You just sort of slide it around like a Ouija board. And then you go, you know, and if you're smart enough, you set them up like that. But then you start to think 3 or 4 moves down board. But a chess grandmaster, they think hundreds or thousands of moves down board. And I just saw a new research study on chess grandmasters that said, yes, they're very, very smart, but they have a unique ability to memorize patterns. They memorize the pattern of the game, hundreds and thousands of games. That's why sometimes some of their games last days. Sometimes they'll play for 15, 20 minutes, look at the board, turn a piece over, turn the clock off, go, it's a draw, neither one of us can win. And the other chess grandmaster goes, you're right. That's how far out they've thought, that there's no move they can make. That is the idea of pattern recognition. When you take that to your job, that's when your job becomes a craft and you become world-class at it. I'm not that smart, but I'm the only guy you know that's read 4,000 or 5,000 business books. And people ask me, doesn't it get redundant? And I go, yes, it's redundant as hell, which is great because that means I know the pattern. If I can read, I'm reading the 70th book on negotiation. I'm like, it says the same thing the last 69 said. Fantastic. I've now figured out what is, out of all this stuff, what are the 4 or 5 things that come up over and over and over again in every, there's only, I teach negotiations for a couple of Fortune 100 companies. There's only 5 things it takes to do well. The interesting thing is they pay me to figure out what were the 5 out of the hundreds of thousands of pages. So that's the idea of pattern recognition. So as an engineer and in business at all, if you become the one that sees the pattern in the way you're building things, the pattern in the way you design things, the pattern in the way things work, the pattern in the way what customers expect, the pattern in the way the marketplace moves, and you can engineer, design, or re-engineer, or refix, or create things that take advantage of that pattern recognition. That's called competitive advantage, first mover advantage, and it allows you to bring products and services and things to the market that no one else realized they even needed. Hence a little bit with Steve Jobs. He was sort of a, was it Nemo? The guy from what's the movie I just said? Yeah.
Matrix.
Yeah, The Matrix. Wasn't it Nemo? What? Neo, not Neo. Nemo's a little fish. Don't eat me. Neo was sort of that. Steve Jobs was the Neo of his age. He was able to see things that nobody else saw. How he did it, I don't know. It was part of his makeup. I can tell you, I've met a few designers in my life that are a little bit like that, not all that way, and they see things completely different. They see things in 3D. I had a guy that worked for me for years that was constantly frustrated and pissed off because he'd walk into every room and go, that's not equal. That's off by 2.5 inches. And by the way, that sign is, if you look over there. I got y'all to look, but it is. But he would immediately see what was wrong, and then he would say, how do I fix it? And he would literally think in 3D. He'd say, yeah, but that's that, but what's behind that? What's behind that? I'm like, why do I need to know that, Tony? He goes, design thinking. You have to understand what's behind that, in order for me to be able to create this. I'm like, well, maybe you do. I have to go get a beer. So this is not going to work for me. So innovation all there.
So design thinking is going to be a topic that we're going to cover in the course. Design thinking has been, I guess, closely attributable to Apple and to IDEO. IDEO is coming onto campus in 2 weeks.
Awesome.
So the question that I have, John, on design thinking is, that's a human-centric method of design. You have to involve the customer. But listen, these are very smart people here. Mm-hmm. Our Edge colleagues are top in their companies or on their way there. You really can't tell them much. So why, you can tell them some insights, but they're pretty smart. I believe them. Mm-hmm. How do you convince the smartest person in the room to exercise his or her ability to be the smartest person in the room. It's something to do with being simple, right?
Yeah, well, simplicity is there's two or three things that are being seen right now as driving business from a theoretical standpoint. It's design thinking, simplicity, and pattern recognition. I mean, if you read all the most advanced texts and all the stuff, and you talk to top CEOs, they're saying that's some of the stuff that's going to drive the innovation in our company. And I really fought back against design thinking because I own an advertising firm, and when it first started, it was all about design as far as beauty and aesthetics, and we're all going to chase Apple and try to make things. But then I started to understand too, and it's progressed in the last couple of years. I had a change of heart about this about a week ago, when I realized that they've now been able to really bring design thinking to strategy, to business model creation, more than just product creation. You actually can really add, now that it's become more sophisticated and more mature, the idea of design thinking around designing companies, designing structure, designing strategy. So when you look at those sort of things, here's the key. You guys will figure this out pretty quickly. The more you learn, the more you realize how little you know. That, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day that's a Harvard professor, and both of us are fairly good at what we do, and both of us were just going, we are such idiots, because there is so much I don't understand. There's huge swaths of things that are way outside of my knowledge area. I know so little about so little, it's almost embarrassing. And that's when you get to that point, is when you open yourself up and say, everybody can be my teacher. Everybody has something to show me. Everybody knows something that you don't know. And if you're curious and you want to learn that, and you take your ego and throw it out the window, A, it becomes a heck of a lot more fun. B, you learn a lot of neat stuff, and C, you get a whole new regard for how other people do what they do. I mean, one of my favorite stories, and he's in a little bit of trouble right now, but we'll talk about him anyways. I saw an interview with Jerry Seinfeld years ago, and they said, man, you're really funny. At the time, he was the wealthiest and most successful comedian in the world. So he's number one in the world at what he does. And they said, you must have been really funny growing up. He goes, no, didn't have a sense of humor at all. Really don't have much of one anyway now. He said, but here's what I do. From the minute I get up in the morning to the minute I go to sleep at night, every single thing that happens to me, I ask myself the same question: what's funny about that? Think about that. What a great engineer or a great entrepreneur does is, where's the business in that? Where's the opportunity? Where's the chance to improve that? Where's the chance to fix it? And if all day long, it's a thing called your reticular activating system. Is anybody familiar with that? Your reticular activating system is a part of your brain, and a system and a process in your brain that helps you figure out the stuff that's most important to you and ignore the things that are not important to you. I could explain it in a whole bunch of ways, but here's the best way. Let's say all of a sudden you decide you want to buy a new car. Andrew, what kind of car do I want to buy? Don't know?
A Jaguar.
A Jaguar. I hate Jaguars.
From the Super Bowl ad.
Okay, so I'm going to buy a Jaguar, a green Jaguar. I go down to can't even say Jaguar right, Jag. So I go down to the place, I look at the green Jag, it's forest green, it's got the cool stuff with the nice leather. I like it, and I go, let me go home and think about this. I'm not quite sure I want to buy it. You drive off the lot, what do you see everywhere? Green Jags, they're everywhere. God populated the earth with them. Your neighbor had one, you never realized it. You look around, that's your reticular activating system. When you put something and say, this is important to me, I need to think about it, all of a sudden you start to see it everywhere. My first book on leadership, one of the things I studied with some of the greatest and most successful business leaders in the world, one of the things they have is an opportunity attitude. They believe that there's opportunity everywhere. And because they believe there's opportunity everywhere, what do they see? Opportunity everywhere. Everywhere they look, chance to build a business, chance to do this, chance to grow that, chance to improve that. So the questions you ask yourself, Anthony Robbins is a big motivational speaker, not only big isn't thing, but he's 7 feet tall. He's got a great quote, and you got to read about that much of his stuff to get one or two good quotes, but here's one. The quality of your life will be determined by the quality of the questions you ask yourself and others. Quality of your life will be determined by the quality of the questions you ask yourself and others. Some people are their own worst enemy. Why can't I be good at this? Why will I never do this? How come I can never lose weight? Why is everybody against me? Bad questions, bad answer. The good leader asks the right question. What can I learn from this? Who can I help improve? Who can I serve today? What can I do to make my business better today? How can I help my customers more? And because they're constantly asking the right questions, they're getting the right answers. So one of the neat things you can learn at this age is beginning to shape those questions and listen to the questions you ask yourself. It's also important as a leader. Bad leaders walk in and go, and I've seen this happen. what is wrong with you people? And they're like, well, you're an idiot. I hate you as a leader. Our company sucks. Our product's bad. It's too expensive. Our customers are idiots. Well, bad question, bad answer. But instead of saying that, they said, I know things aren't now, but what are the 3 or 4 best ideas you can come up with how to improve this product or this process or this thing? Focus on them in the right place. Focus, get the right answers. It's a neat skill, and it's one of the top leadership skills you saw in Under the Seas. Communication, ask great questions and listen.
Ask great open-ended questions. Can you please share the story of
oh, no, you won't know. That's classic.
Questions that it led to you
He's
getting
making me tell you all these
fired
fun
by
stories. Just quickly, years ago when I had the advertising firm, one of the largest construction firms in the world, multi-billion-dollar company, asked us to come up and pitch to them about becoming their marketing and advertising firm. Big potential client. And I go up there, and I arrive, and we set up the projector and everything for us to do our little dog and pony show. And I've done a lot of sales training, so I was really well prepared. But the head of marketing comes in and sits at the far end of the table, and all of his people are down this long table, and I'm at the other room next to up here, next to the little thing. And I said, before I start, I've done a tremendous amount of research on your company. I've looked at all your competitors. I know your industry pretty well, but I'd like to hear it from you. And what is that, Tony? I don't have my glasses on. Tony's like the marketing director, And I said, I'd like to hear from you. Where do you see your business right now in the marketplace, and where do you see it in the next 5 years? And the guy looks right at me and goes, you don't ask questions here, I ask questions. And I went, asshole. And I went, boom, don't want this account. That's a nice thing is when you get to be at a fair level of success, you don't have to take all the business. So I immediately went, this ain't going to. So I look at him, I go, I'm not allowed to ask any questions? He goes, no. I go, can I ask questions later? He goes, no, I'm the one that asks questions. I go, you the only one that asks questions? He goes, yes, I just said that. I said, well, I'm not sure that's what you said. Are you sure that I can't ask questions? Like, can I email you a question? No matter what he said, I answered it with a question. And he goes, are you making fun of me? I go, do you think I am? And he goes, yeah. And he's like, you're doing this on purpose, aren't you? I go, I don't know. Do you think so? And they finally goes, you need to get out of here. I go, right now? He goes, get out of here. I go, can I take my stuff? Literally on the way out, he's going, you never come back. I go, never? Do you mean like, and his staff is like, well, he got fired about 3 months later. They called me and they said, we love you. You want to come back in? I go, do you really want me to? It was just so much fun. But the rest of my team was in the back of the room, A, dying because I just blew up the account, but B, laughing their asses off because they're like, well, at least we went out in style. You sure I can't ask just one more question? He still hates me somewhere. I don't worry. That son of a bitch goes in here asking questions all day long. Wonder what was wrong with him. You mean me?
John's been interviewed numerous times. I took this apart from one of the interviews, and this is the question to John. Do you believe that making it is about luck and being in the right place at the right time? And John's answer is 10% of success is being in the right place and the right time. The rest is all about preparation. That is, preparing for when the lucky opportunity arises.
Yeah.
That sounds easy to talk about, but hard to do.
Very hard to do.
How do we do it?
Well, part of it, again, is being passionate, because you're not going to spend the time to be well prepared and excited about something unless you're excited about something. But it's dedicating yourself to lifelong learning. I'll give you guys a great example here, and I teach this all over the country. It freaks people out. How many books for self-improvement or business improvement, to get better at your job, better at your career, or better at your life, a better communicator, handling conflict better, whatever it is, better at your job, better at your life, do you think the average college graduate reads per year after they graduate from college? It's 0.5. It's 0.5. Yeah, I saw statistics the other day that said the average business manager reads one business book every 5 years. Yeah, if you were to read one business book or self-improvement book to get better as an engineer, to get better as a leader, to get better as a communicator, one book every other month, 6 books a year, you'd be in the top 1% in the United States of America. 6 books. If you read one a month, 12 books a year, you're in the top 1% in the, yeah. Now you know how I got those awards. I'm doing 120 to 200 books a year minimum every year since 1989. Doesn't make me a genius, just means I have access to more information. I have more ideas. Luckily, I have a semi-photographic memory, so I can remember a lot of it, and you guys see spout the numbers off the top of my head. But the idea is, if you love what you're doing, you're excited about it, it's fun, it's never work. And then all that time, like people ask, why do you read all those business books? Because it's just really cool. Business is a really cool game, and I want to win. And it's not, again, it's not because of the money. in the American culture, most people define success as money, fame, and power. If you want to be considered highly successful, you got to be insanely wealthy, very powerful, and very famous. Those things are nice. I have no problem with them, but that's not my definition. My definition is when your self-concept and your core values are in harmony with your daily actions and behaviors. In other words, you've thought deeply about what do I truly value in my life? What are my 4 or 5 most core values? And I've got a really clear picture of the life I've always wanted to live, and I get up every day and I actually do that. And if I'm rich and I own a bunch of islands in the Bahamas and a fleet of Learjets, and that's truly what I value, and that's truly what I want to do, then I'm very, very successful. But I've known a lot of people that own private islands and jets and things, and they were very unsuccessful. They did not, I mean, you could see that they were desperately unhappy. We used to kid about one of them and said, man, he's got a lot of problems, but at least he arrives at them in style on his Learjet or in a limo. Now, the reverse is if you never become rich, famous, and powerful, but every day you live your values, and when you put your head on your pillow at night, you say, this is pretty much what I wanted my life to be like. And if it's never perfect, but it's pretty darn close, then in my opinion, you're exceedingly successful, regardless of wealth, fame, or power. So part of this idea of being successful at all these things is pursuing things that match your core values, that is fun and passionate for you, that will also add value so you can build a career around it. And at the end of the day, you put your head on a pillow and go, another cool day. That was fun. I've mentioned it a couple times, I turned 50 in March. I'm having the most fun I've ever had in my entire life. It's like being in high school and playing with my friends, except for I don't have to ask my dad for money. I mean, it's just, I get up every day and I just can't wait to get to the office because I got more cool stuff to play with, more neat things to do, more fun projects. And Whit will tell you this, I don't negotiate any of my own deals. My wife does. I have no idea how much I get paid to do what I do. I've never asked. I don't care. It's not important to me anymore. What's important is have fun with really cool people doing neat work where I feel at the end of the day that I've really delivered results. Luckily, you can also make a very good living around that. But that's the only way to build a true career. If you pursue money or you pursue something you don't love just to be able to pay for your bills, eventually it's not going to be fun, and then it's just not worth doing.
John's Strategies for Success workbook, is part of this workshop, and it's posted in Sakai. And what John has just described for you is certainly for you to complete yourself. The question is whether or not you choose to do it, and nobody forces you to do anything.
We get to do something really special today.
Okay.
Ready? The workbook, which you guys all have access to, and Whit has it, and it's on your system, actually becomes an ebook on the 28th of this month. And we just built a companion website for it. You guys won't have to buy the book because you got the PDF. It's exactly the same as the ebook. But we have a brand new website that's strategies4success.net. And if you go there, I shot 11 companion videos to walk you through the workshop. So it's strategies4success.net. The website is not live. It probably goes live next Wednesday or Thursday. And the password is focus. So when you go to the Resource Center, it's going to ask for a password. The password is small letters, focus. And then you can take that PDF that Whit's going to give you and go and sit, and that thing will walk you right through it. So it's a pretty powerful program. I've taught it to about 500,000 people worldwide, and I've got some people that still are in contact 15 years later that took it. When I was just out of college, I taught it to some of my friends. I still use it. I still take it every year. It's the workbook I created to get myself through college. When I failed out, I said, man, I learned how to fail really quickly. I better learn how to be successful. So I became a fanatic for learning everything I could, and I put it in my own personal workbook. I never planned to teach it to anybody or share it with anybody, but I showed it to one of my friends once, and he said, you got to teach it to me, and then he came back with a couple of his friends and a couple other people, and 500,000 people later in an ebook. It's now out there everywhere. But you guys have that, and if you have, go ahead and put that on Sakai, the password and the new web address. Yep.
John has been a proponent since I've known him for posting everything that he publishes, whether it's a video or any article, blog post, etc. All of that is very accessible to you. Just go to johnspence.com. And for our colleagues in Edgeland, maybe you've seen John at your company before because John's on the road quite a bit talking to the companies. John, here in Gainesville and other parts of the country and the world, this whole notion of entrepreneurial activity is really driving the economy forward, and it's giving young people and not so young people a real interest in changing themselves. You've been asked a lot about entrepreneurial activities, and yet you can consult for the biggest companies of the world. Where's the parallel between startup companies and the established, successful companies?
A really good question. You've never asked me that one before. I work with the big companies for 2 or 3 reasons. One is they got a lot of money, so that helps. You know, I mean, go to where the cash is. But the other thing is they spend millions and millions of dollars to do research, to build the best business models, to come up with the most innovative things. So if I get to go and work there, I can take all that stuff and bring it back to small to medium-sized and entrepreneurial companies. My passion is helping small to medium-sized companies. Like I said, I had the top 8 people from U.S. Trust last week. Great people. We had a really intensive 2 days together. I will make almost no impact on that company because it's so big. I might help those 8 people, but on a company-wide basis, there'll be a tiny ripple. But if I get with a company that has 60 employees or 20, holy moly, some of the ideas that I steal from the big companies can completely change it. So, but here's what, and Whit and I do this for a lot of companies. Whit has been helped me with some of my clients. It's almost exactly the same. It's just more zeros. It's the same problems. It's the same issues. It's just in a big company, there's more politics and a lot more zeros and a lot more money at stake. They don't mess up a $3,000 or $5,000 project. They mess up a $35 million project. So I see an almost complete parallel around the fundamentals, around great leadership, around great customer service, around a quality product and service, around a differentiated strategy. I don't care if you're running P&G or you're running, you know, Bob's Pop Stand or something or whatever, a pizza place. You still have to do those things. So the neat thing for me too is I can go to those big companies and do work on a global scale with them at a high price because that's what they're used to paying for, and then I can come back and work for a smaller company at 1/10 of the price and have 10 times more impact and actually a lot more fun. So to me, it's the same. The key thing with me though is, and you'll back this up, I meet so many people that go into business because they think they have a cool idea, they're passionate about it, but they don't really love business. And at the end of the day, you still have to run a business. There's a great book called The E-Myth, and The E-Myth talks about the fact that, you know, somebody would be great at tinkering with computers. They can take them apart and put them back together. And by the way, when I met Steve Wozniak, he was extreme. He said when he was 10 years old, he used to go down, and his family couldn't afford to buy electronics, so he would talk to the shopkeepers and let them take the schematics, and he would go back, and he wasn't allowed to write on them, or he would carefully take it out of the plastic, and at night hide under the thing, read it, and redo the schematics in his head. He said, I'd rebuild it 5 or 6 ways to make it better in my head, then I'd fold it all back up and take it into the store. He's also the highest ADD person I've ever met in my life. He was supposed to present for 45 minutes. We were talking together, presenting to Apple, actually. He went for 4 hours. And the guy on the side's going, Mr. Wozniak, you got to catch the plane. Finally, he turns and goes, it's my plane. It leaves when I want it to. I'm sorry, sir. All right. And then he turns back and he goes, what was I talking about? And he goes, inventing the computer. He goes, yeah, computer. You know, but the idea there is if you're passionate about something, you've also got to be able to turn it into a product. And I meet so many entrepreneurs that are massively passionate about what they do, but they have no business sense. They don't want to learn it. They're, you know, and then one day they wake up and they got payroll and HR and employees and taxes and marketing and I hate it. You got to, if you don't like it, you better have somebody on your team that does, because the idea alone won't drive it. It's still got to be run like a great business.
We, as part of our journey, we talk about having an idea that solves a problem. Mm-hmm. Without that, it's a showstopper. Yeah. Or I heard this said the other day on a panel that I served at, and the moderator asked each entrepreneur, what is their fatal flaw? Meaning their business solution that has a fatal flaw. We all do.
Everyone does.
Can you identify what yours is? If you're an aspiring entrepreneur, or better yet, if you're a student, what is your fatal flaw? Well, I can't pay attention in class. Okay.
What were you saying?
Right? Or those kind of things. So be introspective and think about what is your fatal flaw and then work at that.
We've been focusing on this a lot in my business because I've got a huge fatal flaw, which is I can only be one place at a time. I sell time for money, and I only have a limited time. I was on the road 218 days last year. I'll probably be on the road 230, 240 days this year. Doesn't bother me. I like to travel. My wife goes with me. We go to cool places, but there's only so many days. So the fatal flaw in my business, which I'm working on heavily, is there's got to be product. There's got to be passive income. Products, books, tapes, videos, CDs, whatever it is, and I've got to build those up to a point where they generate as much or more revenue than me actually speaking. because that does it. So every company has a fatal flaw. You look at that and go, and I'll teach you one or two quick things. There's a really interesting guy named Dan Sullivan who's called the Strategic Coach. A 4-month program with him costs $50,000, and he gets about 50 to 80 people for each program. So he's selling pretty good time for money there. But he also sells stuff, and he has a book called How the Best Get Better. And I buy a lot of books, you know what I mean? And I'm used to paying 10, 15, 20, 25 bucks for a book. His was 70 bucks. It shows up, it's 29 pages long with big pictures and big type. The only thing worse if it had been a pop-up book. And you know, I'm like, I got so ripped off here. This is terrible. And then I open it up to this page, and it says the 4 keys to referability. And in my business and a lot of businesses, all my business is generated by people telling other people about what I do. So this is great. I open up the book, and I added a 5th, so I'll tell them what to do. Show up on time, do what you say you will do, finish what you start, say please and thank you, give a little bit more than they expect. Show up on time, do what you say you will do, finish what you start, say please and thank you, give a little bit more than they expect. I went, wow, did I get ripped off. But then I turned to my wife, and at the time we owned 3 companies together, and we were building a custom home. I said, can you name one vendor we deal with out of all the companies and the hundreds of vendors and all those people running around our land right now building a house? Is there one that consistently shows up on time, does what they say they will do, finishes everything they start, always says please and thank you, and gives us a little bit more than they expect? What was the answer? Absolutely not. If you did those 5 things, you would blow most people away. If you consistently showed up on time, finished everything you start, did everything you say you will do, said please and thank you, and gave a little bit more than they expect, you can't even begin to imagine how successful you would be. And that's in your career or in your business. Okay? And I looked at it and went, genius. That idea alone was worth more than 70 bucks, quite a bit more. And then the other thing he taught, which I thought was interesting, is he said there's 2 economies. There's a time economy and a value economy. It's a big, big idea if you're interested in building wealth. He said in the time economy, you get paid for the hours you work. It might be a lot, but it's still how many hours do you work? You know, you make your 80,000 bucks to do your 40 hours a week or whatever. In the value economy, it doesn't matter what you do at all, how long you work. It only matters how much value you add. And here was the key idea. Once you understand what your value is, and I think it was Emery who said you hired somebody else to go get your name tag for you, or you, yeah. Oh, you hired him? Well, he's going to love this then. Don't do anything that's below your value. Figure out what your value is. Hire somebody else to do that, but then make sure you spend that time doing something that either builds your business, makes you happy, time with your family, time with your friends, makes you healthy. If it isn't something that adds a lot of value back, don't do it. But if you're going to pay, so I'm not being arrogant about this, but my wife and I we don't wash our laundry, we don't fold our laundry, I don't wash my car, I don't mow my lawn, I don't wash my boat, I don't do anything at my house. And I'm not lazy, I'm happy to do it all, but I know for the value of my time that if I sell one speech or close one deal, I've paid for all of that for 3 years. So I take that and hire somebody at $10 or $12 an hour to do all of that so that I can spend that, this is my thing. I work until I'm so tired I can't stand it, then I vacation until I'm so bored I can't stand it. So on a normal week, I work Monday through Sunday. When I'm working, every single day I go into the office, every weekend I work 5, 6 hours, 8 hours every day. I wake up whenever I feel like waking up. I don't have an alarm. Get up at 9 or 10, I go in, have breakfast, I go in, I'll work till 6 or 7, 6, Monday through Sunday. I don't think I've had a day off since Christmas, probably since New Year's Day. I've worked every single day, loved it, having a blast. But I will also go and take 2 months or a month, solid month off and go to the Keys and go, I'm so freaking bored, I got to get back to work. When I'm working, I make sure that I hire somebody else to do all that other stuff, but I'm sitting, while they're mowing my lawn on Saturday, I'm sitting in the office writing another book, building another class, sending an email to a client, reading a book that I can get something out that I can send to people. Once you get there, you realize that's how people who are successful have so much free time. They understand their value, and they make sure that anything that's below that value, they get someone else to do, and they spend their time on only value-generating stuff. Big idea, and when I meet like top insurance brokers and top business consultants, people like that, they all live by that because they know that's the way to free up your brain and free up your time to multiply your value exponentially.
This is why we have 15 and 20-minute meetings or conversations. because I feel like I can extract the value from you in 15 minutes, and you can extract the value from me in 15 minutes. Anything more than that, we're wasting each other's time, and we have a law of diminishing marginal utility, which is an economic term. But think
Are you
about
allowed
that.
to use economic terms in here?
I can.
Mhm.
Please ask questions. Submit your questions over down this way towards me, and then I'll ask Mr. Spence. Spencer asked this question, and I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit, Spencer. Spencer's question related, John, to managing the contacts and the right information to the right people. Okay,
Right.
that's the. But I'm going to use this in a broader context.
Cool.
We've heard you now, and I would, myself included, it all appears overwhelming. You're not overwhelming, but all of this appears overwhelming. How do we move forward with some of the key things that you've spoke to us about today?
The way you do it, it's a clear process. You pick the top 3 things, and you pick 3 things, you just implement them. Then you pick 3 more, and 3 more as you finish one. I mean, the best way to do this stuff is pick two or three things. Really, 3 is the best, and just say, I'm going to work on these till I get it done. Then I'm going to add a new one, and add a new one, and add a new one. I'm actually writing an article for a big magazine right now, and this is a sort of a delegation idea, but I'll throw it at you guys. I often get asked by people who are leading businesses, CEOs and stuff, I'm overwhelmed all this time, all this stuff, I'm doing all these things, I don't have any time. And there's 2 ideas around that, 2 or 3 ideas. Number 1 is there's no such thing as time management, there's only priority management. Figure out the 2 or 3 things that are most important, put them at the top of your list, do those first. It sounds so simple, but almost nobody does it. I mean, how many of you right now get up every day and write out the top 3 things you need to do for the day, and then focus on all those all day long? Raise your hands. Okay, that's 3 or 4 of you. Yeah, it's a habit of highly successful people that they understand their priorities. Number 2 is one of the best ways to do time management too is find a system you can put it in. I don't care if it's Outlook or Act or this or that and the other, but get it into a computer, because people that are disorganized and don't manage their time well, it's because they're trying to keep it all in their head. Oh, I got to remember to do this, got to remember to do that. Get into a thing, back it up to the cloud, and then forget it. I know I'm traveling all next week. I have no idea where. I will not know until I get my travel pack and I head to the airport, which I've often even not read and got to the airport and tried to go to the wrong city. Yeah, I set up a great dinner and a trip when I was going to Philadelphia until I got to the airport and realized I was going to Pittsburgh. But here's the point. I don't need to know that. That doesn't add any value. I can throw that out of my brain because I know it's in the computer, and I know someone will hand it to me or whatever. So once you get it in there, you can take it out, and then you can focus your entire brain on being creative, being innovative, and then here's the delegation idea. Figure out the stuff that only you can do if you own a business or you're running a business. What's the stuff that only you can do? And do only that and delegate everything else away. When I work with leaders that are overwhelmed, it's because they're trying to do everybody's job. They got a little hand here, a little hand there, looking at that. They're trying to run the whole team. I look at them and say, you got to figure, if you're juggling all these balls, you got to figure out which ones are rubber and which ones are crystal. Let the rubber ones drop, juggle only the crystal ones. That's a big thing for your life. And what that it really comes down to is learning what to say no to, is having clear boundaries and clear expectations. And this is why I keep going around to how do you do that? How do you do that? Here's the answer. When values are clear, decisions are easy.
Could you repeat that, please, John?
What? When values are clear, decisions are easy. And I found out that's a Walt Disney quote. But when you know what you truly value, you know what you're trying to create, you know where you're trying to go in your life, you understand your priorities, then it becomes very simple to look at something and go, that doesn't add value, I'm not doing it. And you know, if that doesn't mean you walk away from it. I'm not saying the fun stuff. You still got to have a ton of fun. But you look at, I don't really need to watch that episode of Seinfeld for the 5th time, or whatever it might be, or I really don't need to spend an extra hour on the computer. That person does not add value to my life. They're not happy, they're not fun, we don't do good stuff together, and if they're not getting better, then they're trying to make you worse. That's a tough idea. If you guys do the Strategies for Success workbook, one of the workshops is list the top 5 people that you spend time with, and you as number 6, and the top 5 areas you spend your time on. And then I have you rate them each on a scale of 1 to 10. And anything time-wise that's not an 8, 9, or a 10, you have to take a serious look at it. And now fun could be a 10. Riding your mountain bike, going to hanging out with friends, that's still a 10. But if you look at something and go, that's a 3 use of my time, I don't know why you would spend the most precious resource you have on something that isn't really fun, or valuable, or healthy, or whatever. Then the people. And here's what I would say. It's tough. If they've got a low score, if you are a high score for them and they're moving towards you, so they're a 4, but they're a 5 the next month, or they're a 6 the next year, then you're a great influence on them, and you're helping them a lot. But if they're a 3 and you're trying as hard as you can and they stay at 3 or go to 2, believe me, they're going to try to drag you down. And that's when you've got to have enough courage to look at it and say, I might need to terminate this relationship. And it can be very hard because oftentimes they have the same last name as you, or they're the person who signs your paycheck. But at the end of the day, you still need to make a choice, because if you become what you focus on, like the people spend time with, if they aren't really making your life better, then they're not adding value, and it's a pretty tough choice. Same thing with your employees in your company.
And it can be done in an empathetic way, which is what we've discussed about innovation. That's really the ideal way. It's all about empathy. When General Hagenbach was in early in the semester, he spoke about leadership from an empathetic standpoint. So John is not suggesting that you become callous and cruel.
I'm not.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
But
one of my highest values is love. So you got to do everything in a loving, kind, gentle, thoughtful way. You never ever out to hurt anybody's feelings. You just say, this is not working out good. We need to. I don't think you really like spending time with me either. And they go, no, I don't really. You go, okay, good. We figured that one out then.
James asked a question: what do engineers need to know about sales and the sales process?
Every one of you is in sales, period. You got to sell yourself. You have to sell your ideas. You've got to sell. And then if you own a company, you've got to sell every day. I taught sales for years. Here's the 3 or 4 things that you need to know about sales. Technique is nothing. Intent is everything. You don't need a bunch of fancy tricks. You don't need a bunch of special tie-down things. If we had it, do you have it in blue? If you had it in blue, would you buy it? That people see through that stuff really quick. If your intent is truly to help, and here's what salespeople do: they help and they serve. Your job is to help other people and give them value and deliver as much value as you can. Then they trade money for that value, or they trade time, they trade something. But all sales is, and it's all about the exact right solution. If it's too high, if the price is too high, people won't buy it. If it's too low, you go out of business. People want to give you money if you add enough value. They've got, you've got something of real value for them. They have something you value as a pile of cash or something like that. You're going to make an equal trade. As soon as you figure that out, then you're not selling anything. You're working your butt off as hard as you can to help people, and in return, they give you some money. So technique is nothing, intent is everything, and it's all about questions and listening. You never sell anybody by telling them stuff. You sell them by asking what they need, what's important to them, what are their problems, what are their issues, what keeps them up at night, what do they want to fix, and then after they listen, you go, wow, I've listened to you really carefully, and it sounds like these are your top problems, and this stuff you want to get about. I got something I think that might fix that. Bad salespeople walk in and go, here's this cool thing I've got that I bet can fix your problems. And they go, no. You go, I listened to you for the last hour. Let me just take 5 minutes and tell you how this is going to solve your thirst problems. Because really, it's a bottle of water, and that's all you've said is you're just thirsty because you got a hangover, you're out too late last night. Anyways, but it's all about asking questions, listening, trying as hard as you can. Well, I'll do this real quick. And think for a second about the things that you hate about salespeople. You're going to think of your average used car salesman. What are the 3 or 4 or 5 things that you hate about bad salespeople? Okay, yep. They're pushy. Okay, they're pushy, they're aggressive, they're rude. Yeah, they're manipulative, they're pushy, they're rude, they're manipulative, they lie to you. What else? Yeah, they're only concerned about themselves. They're about how can I make money? How can I make more money? What'd you say? I was just kidding. They don't listen to what you say. I have to do that every time. I'm such an ass. Sell you things you don't want. Okay, so here it is. They're pushy, they're rude, they talk, they don't listen, they're only concerned about themselves. They try to sell you things you don't need. They don't understand you, right? It's very, very simple. You're incredibly honest and kind, very thoughtful. You never waste someone's time. You only sell them what they truly need, and you do everything you can to help them. Just think of everything you hate about bad salespeople and be the exact opposite. I'm totally serious. I teach a class, very high-level sales class, where I do that thing, and we write it on the board, and I go, what's the exact opposite? And we list out honest, patient, asks questions, listens intently, gets to know me, never pressures me, never manipulates me, blah, blah, blah. Boom, and I look at him and I go, we could end the sales training today, right now, in 5 minutes. Because if you just do the stuff on that list, you will be a great salesperson. But sales is a really, really noble profession if you approach it as, I'm your trusted advisor, and I'm always here to do what's in your best interest. And I'll teach you something real quick, and you do an equation. Great salespeople have what's called high source credibility. And if you want anyone to believe you or trust you, you must have high source credibility. I'm sure every one of you in this room has somebody that if your phone rang right now and they said, I need you right now, you'd get up and walk out. Everybody got somebody like that? Okay. That is somebody who has incredibly high source credibility with you. Source credibility comes from this equation. C plus R plus I over SO. C plus R plus I over SO.
SO?
SO. The C stands for competence. If you want people to trust you, they got to believe that you're really, really good at what you do. Got to have high competence. Again, the word I love is towering competence. Don't question, you're really good at what you do. That's the C. The R is reliability. You show up on time. You do what you say you will do. You finish what you start. You say please and thank you. I can take your word to the bank because I know it's gold. You always deliver. Highly reliable. I, interesting word, is intimacy. And all that means is we have a strong relationship. I didn't just meet you for the first time. I've known you for a while. We've been to lunch together. We've played golf together. Our families know each other, whatever it is. But it's what's called tie strength is another word to use there, or multiplexity. In other words, we've got a pretty strong relationship. All over divided by SO, which is self-orientation. Self-orientation. How much is it about me in the relationship? And if you were to plug numbers in, it should be 10, 10, 10, 1. I'm really good at what I do, highly competent. I'm exceedingly reliable. We have a strong personal relationship in addition, or we're building it, we're working on it, and I'm doing it all because I'm focused on you. I put you before me in the relationship. You want to be a great salesperson or create trust as a leader, that's what it takes. Now, it doesn't mean you allow anybody to take advantage of you. You're not a wimp and you're not let them roll you over, but it does say, the best way to create trust is to lead with trust, is to extend it first. Most people say, I won't trust you till you prove that I can trust you. That can take weeks, months, or years. The people who do this right say, I'm going to fully extend trust to you until you prove that I shouldn't. And it may be very quick. Maybe a matter of seconds you go, hey, I'm going to trust you. You go, oh, no, I'm not going to trust you. But if you do it the other way is, until you prove to me that I can trust you, I'm not going to trust you. You know what? You end up not trusting anybody and not being seen as trustworthy. You want to be seen as trustworthy? You extend trust first. And then if you get a tripwire or a couple red flags, you might pull it back. But if you do that with a self-orientation, extend the trust first and focus on them, you will find that people will open up to you. They will trust you. They'll tell you their problems. They'll tell you their issues. They tell you your challenges. And then all you do is look at it and go, here's how I think I might be able to solve that. And oftentimes they'll go, that sounds great. When can you start? Don't even ask the price. Let's do that right away. Or you go, we can fix that, and it'll be about $137 million. And they go, thought it was going to be 150. That makes me happy. Let's go. And you laugh about it, but the largest deal I've ever closed was $3.2 billion. And the other side that spent the money thought it was an awesome deal, and we all went out to dinner together, and they were exceedingly excited to spend $3.2 billion. So it's not the number of zeros. It's, do you truly believe the other side is trying to help you? Are we really adding value? If you do, it's just zeros. It could be $3.20 or $3.2 billion. It's no different.
Here's a test for you. To someone who you know, in the email, because that's how we communicate today, email, don't text, but email, in the subject line, write at your service. Use the little at sign if you wish, at your service. And then offer them something. I do this all the time. And you'd be surprised of the quickness of the response, and then the absolute sincerity of willing to work with you. Now, am I trying to sell them on something? Perhaps. But what am I really trying to do? Establish myself as reliable, I have integrity, trustworthy, and being able to bring something to them, value, which is one of the major themes that John has talked about today.
Can I add something to that real quick?
Yeah, but I do challenge you to do that, and edgers do the same way, because you're dealing with your colleagues all the time, colleagues and customers, at your service. Challenge them.
And I'm going to teach you the second most important thing I ever learned, which is don't be afraid to do the reverse, which is need your help. 6 years ago.
Need your help, please.
Need your help, please. Or just, I don't know if you've ever heard the story. About 6 years ago, one of my closest friends in the world killed himself. Committed suicide. He was actually a U of F engineer. I won't say his name, but he had gotten a little bit behind in his payments and stuff, and he owed about $60,000. And he was at one time very wealthy, but he was too embarrassed to tell anybody that he had run out of money. Too afraid, thought it would hurt. I'm believing he thought it would hurt his reputation. He had hundreds of friends, and he never mentioned any, never asked any of us for help. Any one of us could have written a check, or a group of us would have got together and given him the money, no problem at all. Not even as a loan, just give it to him. But instead, he put a shotgun under his chin and killed himself. And the one thing I learned from that is you've got to be comfortable asking for help. If he had asked for help, there was hundreds of us that would have run in to help him. But because he had too much pride or whatever it might have been, he never told anybody, he never asked for help, and he ended his life. And he took, and you can see I've got a tough thing here. A, I miss him, but B, I'm mad at him because I just look at it and go, this was so easy to fix. This was so incredibly easy to fix. If you had just asked 3 or 4 of us for help, we wouldn't have said anything and we would have fixed it all in one day. But you didn't ask for help, and now we can't help you. So also be comfortable enough that no matter how successful you are, no matter how good you are at what you do, never, ever, ever be afraid to ask for help. Not only on a personal level, but on a business level. I spend a great deal of my time sending emails that say, need your help. And then I always finish them up. If there's anything in the world I can do to assist you, you know I'm here to help you or assist you in any way I can, please never hesitate to send a note. I am at your service. That's where he gets that. So I'm not afraid.
No.
You don't be afraid. But
I had it myself.
okay.
Thank you. Not every idea is yours.
Well, they're certainly not yours. No, I'm just kidding. You can tell we're really good friends because we tease each other.
John, 2014, looking forward.
Yep.
What are some of the big trends that you see in the year?
Big trends. I'm fascinated by a thing called the technological singularity. How many of you know what that is? Couple. For the rest of you that don't, probably all of you know Moore's Law, chip speed double and half at price. And then there's this thing that they used to teach all the time about, would you rather have a penny today that got doubled every day or $1 million? And who know, if you take the penny, well, if you take the $1 million, that's nice. You take the penny that doubles every day, you know, at the end of the week, it's like 11 cents, and then it's this, then it's that. At the end of the month, 30 days, it's $5 million. But you don't see it until the last 3 or 4 days, where it goes from 100,000 to $1 million to 5 million. Boom. No one ever told you what happens if you go another 30 days. Anybody know what the number gets to? 5 quadrillion. Okay? That's where we are with technology. We have gotten to where it's almost a straight line. When chip speed double now and half in price, the amount of doubling is mind-boggling. And if that continues to go, and there's some people say that we're going to hit a theoretical limit of how long chip speed can double, but right after they said that, they came out with a new way to edge chips that was 4,000 times more aggressive, or 4,000 times smaller. So now there's the potential to go 4,000 times bigger on a chip. Not double, 4,000. If you take that thing and go out about 15 years, what happens? Computers become as smart as people. The impact for you guys is a lot of the stuff that we pay people to do now is going to be done much, much better, much, much more efficient, and much higher levels of quality than a human could ever do. For example, reading X-rays. Most X-rays today are either read by technicians in India or by a computer. And the computer, you know, because what does an X-ray technician do? They take all of the history of all the X-rays they've ever looked at, they think about them, they look at the X-ray and go, this is what it looks like. Even your best X-ray technician looks at what, 10,000, 15,000? What happens when you can load 1 billion X-rays into the computer and give it that much skill? Now, you know where I heard this was at I was doing a thing called the Top of the Table in Phoenix, which was the top 1,000 financial advisors and insurance people in the world. Nobody in the room made under probably 30 million bucks. And there was a guy that stood up there in front of him, a futurist, and said, in 10 years, most of what you do will be completely useless. It'll be commoditized, and you won't get any money for it. Boy, were they happy to hear him. Yeah, but that's a big trend. The other trends I see is still more globalization. Much better on culture. Companies are finally understanding that culture equals cash, and if we want to attract and keep top talent, we got to treat them well. But that means you have to be top talent. You didn't say that, that's great, but they're also become very picky. Microsoft, Google, all those top companies, they hire about 1 person for every 8,000 to 10,000 people that apply for a job. So when you say I want top talent, you also got to remember you have to be top talent. And I tell that to people that are in companies. I told the folks at US Trust, you know, I know you're the top 8 right now, but if you don't continue to really be good at what you do and learn and grow, you will not be one of the top 8 next year because somebody else is gunning for that spot. Not necessarily for you, just how can I be talent? So talent's critical. Globalization, technology is going to replace a lot of stuff, which also means you better become really good at something that technology can't do. Problem solving, decision making, creativity, innovation, things like that.
Leadership is a tried and true formula. leadership stays the course, right?
Yep, leadership always stays it, personal and organizational leadership.
On that note, John, as always, thank you so much.
My pleasure, my honor.
Having you back on campus, the Gator Nation, and our colleagues in Edgeland, I think were really treated by what you had to say today.
Hopefully everybody got something good.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Nice good chocolates there.
All right. Thank you very much. Diego, if you could cut us here. We will see each other next week. By the way, Diego, you can take us off now.